political view stated, but there's no facts behind it. And it's kind of what you're saying, it's emotion.
The thing that I struggle with in that room, though, is that as much as I do like Gary, I think without having chat and without allowing people to respond to people, like where it's just a conversation with Gary and the person, people can get away with saying some really outlandish things that never get checked.
I 100% agree. There is a chat that happens. It's on Facebook Messenger as the room is going, and it's 80% dominated by Trump derangement syndrome people. So, and if you take them on any of their, I mean, there just can be blanket statements like, let's see, today Republicans are immoral, things like that. If you take them on, you're immediately, labeled either racist or you're misogynist. I mean, you get every term, but it runs simultaneous, and then it just keeps running through the messenger chat. It's frustrating.
Gary is a throwback to like the 1970s, 1980s newsmen who drank at lunchtime, and it makes me nostalgic. I always agree 100% with what goes on in this room, and me and him have had words I say over that chat thing. But I think there is Clubhouse is a graveyard. And his room is one of the few places where you actually can have a conversation without it turning into absolute nonsense. So yes, some people get emotional, but ultimately it's a well-moderated room, and it's not stupid for lack.
I agree with you 100%, but I would also add that I don't know if I agree with Mojo entirely, although I defer to him 99% of the time on 99% of the things. Like, I think Clubhouse may have a kind of I don't want to say renaissance. I think it will eventually perhaps lead the way in many of the social tech spaces, because these apps where people are meeting in person are becoming so popular. The research on being digitally drowned, so to speak, by too much technology. This is kind of a halfway point. This is a hybrid where you at least hear people's voices. And I think we're going to move away from spaces where people are just text-based. And, this will be a happy medium, because people don't necessarily always want to be in person, but I think there's going to be a renaissance period for revival for social audio. Sorry, I don't want to.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think social audio is going to be thought about like as, the way that we do about like adult videos, theaters that used to exist. I'm sure they exist in some parts of the world, but they used to be all over the place, right? And now you could just talk about, hey, remember the time. And I think our experience on social audio, we will probably look back and go, hey, remember when there was this thing where you could get on and you could like be around a bunch of weirdos and you could yell at each other and you could, I mean, if you think about the full range of experiences on here, there's people that are sharing legitimate good information with people that benefit them in their life. I mean, shit, I've been in rooms where, and I'm not just blowing smoke up Todd's ass because he's on the stage for the first time in 1,000 years, but Todd's talked about nutrition in rooms where I'm like, does this guy know what he's talking about? And I'm fucking Googling shit, and I'm just like, yeah, this guy's fucking smart. And like, and so some of the things that people bring up, you can incorporate in your life because like somebody said something that you weren't even aware was a thing, and like the nutrition thing's just one of them. That's on the positive side, but I think it's so over-indexed on negativity that I don't think it's going to have a renaissance, because I think what will happen is, for all the reasons that celebrities said when they peaked in and then they said, oh shit, I better go, like the Kevin Harts of the world, I think that that's going to be the conclusion that most people come to, is like, hey, that seems fucking fun, but it's not for me. Kind of like a rave, or maybe like, those adult video theater.
Well, how long do you think people have to log into a social audio app like Spaces or Clubhouse to really get the gist of what it's all about? Like, do you think you can pick it up in a month if you come regularly? Do you think you have to spend a couple years where you see it evolve over time and see how things change? Like, what do people really need to become acculturated to a social audio app?
I think the first thing they have to do is come here and get bored. They need to go to a boring room, and then right after the boring room, they have to go to an all-black room where everybody's yelling at each other, and then they find something in the middle of that, and that's how they find their little place on this app. That's how I found my place.
Did you tell people, do you want to talk about, I've been working and just listening in the background all day, so I didn't really hear what happened, but do you want to tell people what happened to you earlier, or no, is that not appropriate?
Nah, that was just a dumb little thing that happens where, I get kicked out of rooms because I have opinions that people disagree with. That's fine. But I'd rather talk about a text message that you sent me. Can I read it to people? Dr. Jordan?
Wait, which text message? Give me
all of them. Full disclosure.
So Dr. Jordan sends me a text message, and he says, "Hey, are white people allowed in healthy debate still?"
Well, because there were none of the original white people. There weren't even any of the original black people or colored people of color. There were.
It's the only text message from Dr. Jordan that I didn't know how to respond to. I was just like, I read it multiple times, but I didn't know how to respond.
I mean, I'm white passing. I should have said, are white passing people allowed in healthy debates?
On behalf of the colored people of color and teapot people, you are allowed in healthy debate. And I'm unanimous.
But be careful criticizing Israel, you might get in trouble with the law. First Amendment.
As you fucking
Facts.
Hey, Kamiri, why would anybody want to wish any ill on Israel?
No, it doesn't matter. Israel, Mexico, Japan, First Amendment.
What about the First Amendment?
I know there's people recording. I know you can get in trouble. They can
How?
label you anti-Semitic and it's punished by law. This is all
how are you gonna
attacks
be
on
punished?
First Amendment.
How
We
are
know.
you going to be punished?
If you say something that, for example, you will report me and say that this guy is anti-Semitic, and then you start digging with those a lot of documents that Congress signed, which is you say something. If you deny, for example, if you deny existence of Israel, they will label you anti-Semitic and they can get you in trouble. This is direct attack to First Amendment.
Somebody here on Clubhouse, allegedly, somebody here on Clubhouse got pulled out of their own house and arrested for being on Clubhouse and saying a few things about wanting to go to America or wanting to just get out of the country, period, and not agreeing with the things that were going on with the war currently, and they were yanked out of their home, arrested, and there was a whole fundraiser thing on here for
And
them.
do you guys think if this is
Hold on, everybody, hold on. Amari, you spoke in generalities, so now I want you to be very specific. Tell me exactly what law and how that would be prosecuted, what you would say, and what you would be breaching under the law. Please be very specific.
If you deny,
Very slowly, I'm asking you to cite the law.
I don't know the law. But if you deny, listen,
Your ignorance is pretty clear.
if you deny the existence of Israel, is it anti-Semitic?
If you deny the existence of Israel, it is not against the law in the United States to deny the existence of Israel.
Is
Do I
to
think
be
you are
anti-Semitic
Yes.
against the law?
I'm going to answer you. I personally think that if you deny that the country exists, it's a state, so I'm not exactly sure what you're denying. The UN resolution in 1947, I mean, what exactly are you denying? But if you have that feeling, I personally think you're a fucking idiot. And I personally, in my personal opinion, think that you're probably a Jew hater, and I guess that you haven't
first of all,
broken
listen to
any answering you. You have not broken any law in the United States, and you're free to have that opinion. So please tell me what law you have broken that you would then get in trouble. And what does trouble mean? Please define it specifically.
No, I have to ask this question. You're the lawyer. I'm asking question, and if you could answer. For example, I'm not a Jew hater, but if I was, is it against the law?
No. You can take your swastika march in my neighborhood, and it's legal. Do you understand what I just said? You can walk around my neighborhood. You can walk around in front of Holocaust survivors with a swastika, and it is legal in the United States. So what are you talking about?
But are you only referencing the United States, or are you talking about other countries?
Hillary, Skokie,
I'm referring to
the village of Skokie versus a white socialist party. Look up the case, the very famous Supreme Court case. It is illegal in the United States to feel hate. We're allowed to hate in the United States. It is not against the law. It is constitutional. And we have a very, very famous Supreme Court case where a bunch of Nazis marched in Skokie, Illinois, which is where it was a community where a lot of Holocaust survivors lived. And it was constitutional. So please tell me what you're talking about.
here. I will pull out all those 22 bills or something they signed in the Congress, go through them, and then come back and ask you questions.
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, I think
And
he's right.
if you be genuine, do you know anything when you can get in trouble by just talking on a social?
Yes,
No.
you can get in trouble if you have fighting words. If you threaten someone, if you use fighting words, it's a crime.
For example,
So, what's fighting word?
yeah.
What do you think, Dale?
I don't know. I'm asking you because I have no idea.
Here, let me give you an example. I'm gonna go home and find your Jewish wife and rape her and beat the fuck out of you.
Oh, okay. So threat, direct threat.
Yes, that's not
if
protected under
we-
our Constitution.
What if I tell you I'm recording you and I'm gonna find you?
If it is credible as a threat, and if you have the ability to do that, and I am in imminent harm, then it could be something that would be considered a crime.
Because that's
Anything involving causing harm to yourself or others that puts anyone in an actual real threat or harm on a child, potential harm on a child, you're gonna get singled out for it. You can be arrested for
Well,
it.
hold on. So the characteristics of fighting words, they usually are aimed at a specific individual. The speech must be so offensive that it would provoke an average person to retaliate immediately. And then there's a face-to-face context component where fighting words typically occur in close-up, in-person confrontations, not through social media or political protests.
But you can be threatened on social media. You can threaten.
Yes, you can, but that's something. That's not the provoking nature of fighting words. Threats are illegal no matter if they're delivered by carrier pigeon.
So come on.
Oh my god, I want to carry a pigeon so bad right now.
Come on.
To carry out my threats.
What exactly are you asking?
What?
Amari, don't threaten anyone on social media. It's probably not a good idea. And definitely don't threaten anyone that's in public office.
Yeah, Trump will let you in the country.
So what was this person that was supposedly arrested on Clubhouse for saying something? What happened? What's the story behind it?
I'm not sure all the details because I didn't care enough to really ask. But it was basically somebody was on here who was in Israel and got on here and was talking against Israel or something along those lines. Wasn't supposed to be on social media. I don't know why. And so it was talking against the war and it was shit like that. And then apparently the person a couple hours later was pulled out of their home and arrested.
So Hillary, you're a pretty bright woman, don't you think there's probably a shit ton more to that story?
Oh, I know there is. That's why I prefaced it by saying I don't know all of the exact details.
I mean, that doesn't. You'd have to know the story, but there are people that have threatened other people on this app. I mean, I know one person that's sued for defamation, and there have been people that have threatened other people.
Let's hear from Riaba, who I take it you don't like Zionists?
No.
What's your grievance with Zionists?
Well, they don't like Americans.
Well, I'm an American and I'm a Zionist. What are you talking?
Well, so like you say, you're a Zionist, like of what, of what degree? Because I'm speaking mainly of a particular entity that controls really both political parties, really.
Interesting. So I guess you don't know the definition of being a Zionist. I just simply believe in the Jewish people's right to self-determination and the right to have their own state. Just like I would believe that Japanese people should have the right to Japan, or Spanish people should have the right to Spain. But go.
Yeah, those people should have the right to Edom.
There are many types of Zionism.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I mean, there's like you might consider yourself Zionist, right? And you're an American, but you're putting America first, right? Wouldn't that be your?
I'm definitely I'm an individual first person.
Okay, so that's even better. So my issue with Zionists or Zionism, when that mindset is that, and specifically, right, the entity that controls, like I said, both political parties. They, from what I'm seeing and what I've looked at, is they do not like the America. They don't like America. They just don't. They don't.
Well, hold on. I'm fairly pro-American, and I'm also pro-Israel, and I like civilizations that have like some common threads around, desiring to protect their citizenry. I admire this about the U.S. and Israel. There seems to be a lot in common, and I tend to oppose uncivilized societies that would intentionally target innocent civilians, especially women and children. And so I couldn't be happier to identify as a Zionist.
Well, I'm thinking more of the elitist aspect. I mean, do you consider yourself an elite?
No, I'm definitely not an elitist. But you said that Zionists hate Americans. Where's your evidence?
Let's see. I have several clips of rabbis, right? And they work hand in hand with people of the IDF and other aspects of the governmental structure over there in Israel. And they claim that they would love to see America get blown to smithereens, basically. Not their words, not the exact words, but pretty much that's basically what they're saying. So
what are the exact words they're using?
Oh, they're basically saying that Israel gotta be, or America gotta be destroyed so that their state of Israel can be fully in power. So basically,
who says this?
Mm-hmm.
Who says this?
A couple of Jewish rabbis have said this. High level ones have said this before.
You give me a source on that.
I'd have to send the clips over.
Well, this was part of your argument. I mean, you came up on a stage in this conversation, you're bringing it up, but I'm just saying, like, you said that you've heard rabbis say it. If I were to tell you that, hey, I heard Dolly Parton say something, if you were to say, oh, can you show me what Dolly Parton said that? I'd go look for where it was that I heard Dolly Parton saying that. Can you find that?
Adams is down. I got them, but I'm just throwing it out there because I don't know if people are aware of this.
So who are these rabbis?
They're pretty high up.
Would you say that you're an expert when it comes to Israel?
I would say that I've done enough research. I'm not going to say that I'm a super expert.
When's the last time you've been to Israel?
I haven't been to Israel. But as far as I understand certain aspects of the region and the military.
What is your interest in a place that you've never cared enough to?
My interest is understanding that, the president, and actually all presidents based off of what Netanyahu said, that they have them in their pockets. So if I understand that there's an outside source, right, that is controlling this country, but this country is supposed to be America first, then we have to understand that this entity that's controlling America, America's really not autonomous. This country being controlled by a whole other state. That's the reason why.
Would you say you identify? Well, hold on a second. Hold on. Would you say you identify as Black Hebrew Israelite?
No. The Black Hebrew Israelite terminology is a made-up FBI, CIA term.
So, how do you identify?
I identify as being an Israelite. I can't say Black Hebrew Israelite.
Okay, so forget about black. Are you Hebrew?
Yeah, I'm Israelite.
Okay, how about this? Why don't you tell me your favorite verse of the Torah, but read it to us?
Wait, say that again?
Take your favorite verse from the Torah and read it to us in Hebrew.
I mean, I can read it in Paleo Hebrew, original Hebrew. I'm not going to read it in the Yiddish/Syrian Hebrew.
Okay, so what dialect is Hebrew?
I mean, look, I'll study the Yiddish, Hebrew that these people speak, but mainly I deal with the ancient Hebrew.
All right, let's hear your favorite verse. This will be fun.
I don't feel like that's necessary.
Do you not speak Hebrew?
Oh yeah, I do, but I don't think that's necessary because people are not going to.
No,
I'm not going to do that.
And the Bible was written, I think, before the year 1200. So my last chance I read the Bible, it was in really advanced. So why don't you read us here?
Yeah, there's no vowel sounds in that. original people like
Go ahead, read it. I can read it without vowels.
Yeah,
Read
read it with all the consonants.
Give me the vowels, we'll give you the vowels.
how about I just read it verbatim for English? You know what I'm saying? Because there's people that probably
Hold on. Listen. When Spanish people come in here, I ask them, hey, can you read something to me in Spanish? They'll say, sure. If Japanese people come in here, I'll say, hey, can you read that to me in Japanese? They'll read it in Japanese. How come when somebody that says that they're an Israelite that speaks Hebrew, and I ask you to speak Hebrew, all of a sudden your Hebrew disappears?
No, because I think this is more semantical than anything. What's the point of doing that?
I don't.
You know what I mean?
How about I make my point more clear? I think you're a Jew-hating fraud, and I don't think that you speak Hebrew, and you can't speak it, so you're just going to say that you don't want to. I think that's a little closer to the truth.
I despise the elitist aspect of Zionism. You know what I'm saying?
I have no fucking clue what you're saying. Neither do you.
I mean, okay, so for me to sit up here and say I hate Zionism, right? You know, the elitist aspect of it. That's to sit up here. So we're gonna equate that and try to compound that with hating every single Jewish person. That's not factual. It's close. Yeah, it's close.
It's French for friend.
Does that help? No. You obviously don't know any sort of Ani means Ani means I.
But specifically, right, the entity that controls.
Well, even better, you know what? Here's an easy one. Abba. Do you know what Abba means?
Torah has its own hierarchy of
Listen,
values,
bro.
and they form the
Italian
tenet of Torah's guidance on security.
I'm asking you.
In the Rebbe's
Okay,
view,
thanks, double agent.
before we get to the Jewish rules of self-defense, before we get to how to handle Israel's diplomatic relations and the morale of the IDF, and how to handle the enemies outside and inside of Israel, we need to be comfortable to step into our own
You're just
identity
anti-Zionist. You're just anti-Zionist.
about what our
Yeah, I'm not sitting up here saying I'm anti-Jew.
And
I
just
don't hate
as for
all Jewish
thousands of
people.
years
I just hate fucking elites, just like I hate
A lot of
we
Jews,
also
right?
called it our thing.
Okay,
Our
you're a
land,
Native
so
American
to
hater.
every
You
Jew
hate Native
everywhere
Americans.
in
You
the
work
world
with
is
the Italian
the
mafia
essential
in
connection
the
to
fucking casino, the casino that Native Americans have. According to what people are talking about, shouldn't have happened.
how Israel can ensure security. What to do for each of
I asked you a straightforward question. If you're interested in engaging as a good faith actor, okay, let's see what we can do that. What's a Zionist?
Well, Zionism is the elitist state of Israel that was established in 1948, right? And then you have people who go under the ideology of that, but some of them don't understand how complex it is. So this is a question.
Where did you find that definition?
I can do it for myself. I don't need to go look at the definition of anything. To be honest with you. I can look at the definition, but I can define. So there's certain things that you can define for yourself because you can understand where things come from, especially when you understand the origins of things, where things come from.
I think that actually, you know, that he is really understanding understanding of where the word comes from, what it actually means, and we start using the word, which can be really highly offensive and inaccurate as well. And that's why I'm asking you, like, if we're going to have a conversation, let's have some common ground, at least. So you've made up a definition of what Zionism is. What if I was to make up a definition
This video is for all
like Hebrews? So I can say, well, it's actually just a cult, a nonsensical cult that hates Jews. Okay, that you wouldn't be too happy about that, would you? I'll answer the question. Well, I don't really care about it. Well, I'm not attacking you like that. I'm just giving you an example. Okay. And I can make up some information. I can say, look, I mean, these Hebrew Israelites and just started a couple of criminals. Just hit your hands. And just going to be able to create a cult. But I'm not going to say that because it's just so important to me find definitions, which is exactly what you're saying of what Zionism is. And you're being incredibly, I think, intellectually dishonest. Incredibly disrespectful. So,
Are you okay with the elites? Do you? I mean, because
I'm happy to have that conversation. Okay, I'm happy to have that conversation. You're actually diverting. I just want to yourself and others. Trying to direct the conversation in a different direction. I'm trying to find a baseline for our conversation, which is the definition of what Zionism is, and explain to you that it's highly offensive and intellectually dishonest to be able to label it the way it is. So why is it that you can espouse to be able to be a good interlocutor and appreciate that there's a need to be able to get to the root and the understanding of the word when it comes to Zionism, and 95% of Jews identify as being Zionist, that you feel that you have the license and the gall to be able to say what it is without actually understanding what the meaning is.
Yeah, I just want to say something. Right, when we doing with person, we already established this word.
Hang on for a second. I appreciate you wanting to be able to chime in on this, but I'm honing in on something that's just typical.
Serving
Okay,
God.
when people using words,
You will return.
and they have no idea what they're talking about.
First America.
Rabia, can you expand upon that? I'm asking you, why is it that you feel that it's unnecessary at all to be able to get to the root of this particular word? Why?
I mean, look, that's the reason why I use the term elite. Because anybody can be a Zionist from a certain specific standpoint. I'm targeting.
You can't, hang on, wait, I'm going to shut you up, okay? Because you're not going to do this to me. You're not going to waste the time, effort, and energy of this fucking room. Pardon my French. Right? We try and gish gallop and work around the direct question I'm asking you. Why is it that you feel that it's important to be able to be intellectually honest about getting to the root of a particular word, yet when it comes to Zionism, you don't feel as if you have the responsibility to be able to make sure that you are not offending other people? Okay, that's my question. Now answer it, please.
Bodily injury or bodily injury.
Yeah, I literally sat up here and said when I came on stage, elite. You heard that.
Perhaps
You're not answering my question. I don't know whether you are intellectually challenged. I don't know whether you're intellectually challenged. You are being deliberately evasive and really fucking annoying.
No, you literally said what I said when I first came up here. But it's all good.
Why is it
Serving God.
direct question I'm going to ask you for the third time. Why is it that you feel that it's important to be able to get down to the root of the word so that there's common understanding of language, but when it comes to Zionism, you choose to be able to make up whatever meaning to it than what you feel it is?
I'm going to answer the direct question, and I'm going to give a three-dimensional answer after that, if you can understand that. So directly, I'm not being intellectually dishonest at all. I'm not being intellectually dishonest, right? Because all Zionism means is to be. from what I remember reading a long time ago, is that it is somebody that supports the state of Israel. Now, so that's what it means. But when I came on stage, bro, and this is the three-dimensional aspect, I mentioned the elitist. This is the reason why I even put in the chat before I came up in here that it's not about all Jews. It's about the elite status of the Jewish state of Israel that was established by the Balfour Declaration by the Rothschilds. All right, the same Rothschilds who bailed out fucking Trump in the fucking 90s. All right, but that's far beyond the point.
Do you actually understand how ridiculous you sound?
Oh my God, really?
I don't know.
He got bailed out by he literally got bailed out by the Rothschilds in the 90s, dude. Like, you can go look this up for yourself.
Great, wonderful. You still haven't got to the point, which I asked. Okay, which I've been really direct about. You clearly don't want to engage in an intellectual conversation with me, an honest one. You're wasting my time and everybody else's time. Okay, your double standards are insane. Do yourself a favour, before you come off mute again, please go and have a look for the definition of Zionism. And I'll tell you when you're actually good, okay? Because the answer is this. Number one, it is the return of Jews back to their indigenous, native, and ancestral homeland, which is Israel. And number two is the right to be able to self-determine within that land. Now, if anybody at all has a problem with that definition, I'm more than happy to have a conversation. Yes, there are different types of Zionism that have appeared, but that is the root of what Zionism is. It's something that has been around since the year 70 AD as a practice of an indigenous native people who were dispersed from their native land.
I have a question on that.
Okay, so I have the etymology. Okay.
Hey, I got it. Hang on.
Real short.
Like I said to you, hang on for a second.
What the brother
Hang on. Just hang on a second. Rabbi, what I said to you was very clear as an instruction said. If you come off your microphone, okay, and tell me that you can disagree with that, then that's fine. I want to see the reason. Okay, until that point in time, you're not going to waste the time, energy, and certainly not the excruciating levels of pain for people to listen to.
TJ Daniel for
Sheriff of
I was
America.
going to be real short. Now, based off the definition you just read, you don't need to be a Jew to support Zionism.
TJ Daniel for Sheriff
That's
of
what
America.
Robbie was saying. A lot of the elites in the world support Zionism, and they're not Jews, because they also believe in the protection. Well, another thing part of Zionism is also you believe in the protection of the state of Israel as well. You support the protection of it. So what do you think the American government giving money to them every year is about? Do you understand? So that's
that was the question. Now, that was the question. Do I understand? Okay, what I understand is that you've used the term elites. Okay, sort of pointing towards there's a hierarchy of individuals that are elite Zionists. Let me tell you something. There's no such thing. Okay, 95% of Jews are Zionists. When you're referring to Zionists, you're saying the Jews. Okay, on whole, yes, there are people who are not Jewish who are Zionists as well. Absolutely. And there's a number of them, thank goodness, who are clear in mind and understand the benefit, why they are actually in favour of supporting an indigenous native people who want to be able to return back to their homeland. I don't see what the problem is. Anyway, Marshall, welcome back. How you doing?
Good, how are you?
Hey, Marshall.
Let other people speak. Howdy.
Hey, how you doing?
Hey, Ro. Hey, everybody.
Let other people speak, but when it talks about Trump and his bailout in the 90s, I mean, my firm represented him back then, and there was like 7 banks involved, and it was leveraging him out of the Trump Castle and the Taj Mahal and Citibank and Chase banks. There were no Rothschilds. It's comical when you hear people say that shit. He really doesn't understand. What was happening in the last 6 years. And by the way, Rabbiah, just for your edification, the Rothschilds, by the way, haven't been a Jewish family for probably the last 70, 80 years. There's maybe one Jew left in the family at all. It's a Christian family. So,
the international banking cartel, Abby.
They're not Jews anymore. They're not Jews anymore, Rabbiah. They're not. It's an inter-American Christian family. And Trump didn't get bailed out by the Rothschilds. I'm not triggered at all. It's just a subject I know firsthand. He did get bailed out by several different banks. There's about 7 lenders on the deal.
Yeah.
And there was me consumer property.
That's not the information I have.
One of my buddies knows. Wait, hold on. What information do you have? Because you talk as if you know anything. You claim to be Hebrew. You don't speak it. I'm just curious. Can you tell us, like, if we want to educate ourselves, to be fully educated, like you are, in the Scientology of the hood called BHI? What book should we read that would help us learn what you've learned?
Let's see. Well, I can give you a couple Luciferian books, what I'm saying, that these people study, but, it's all good. But you want to sit up here and talk about BHI.
I want to know where did you get your information from? I just want to understand where you is this. Are you getting it from the street corner prophets, or are you actually reading a book?
Maxwell. Have you ever heard of Jordan Maxwell?
Yeah, let's quote him. Give us a book that we should all take a look at for Jordan Maxwell. No, not a book, huh? You had to Google it. Amazing.
No, I'm just laughing. Because this. This shit is just funny to me because it's like the information is readily available.
Interesting. Hey, how about this? Talk to me again. I've asked you to do this earlier, but you refused. Can you explain how it is that you claim to be fluent in Hebrew, but you don't know how to speak it? Like, where's this contradiction? Why can't you read one single scripture to me in Hebrew?
Why would I sit up here and read in Hebrew when people don't? Most of the people in here don't even speak Hebrew.
Well, I think the point is, right? Like, if I were to ask somebody to sing, right? If they knew how to sing, they would sing, and if they didn't know how to sing, they wouldn't sing. And so, what we're really validating is that you don't know how to speak Hebrew. It wouldn't matter if we knew how to sing; we could just listen to somebody sing. So we want to listen. We want to listen to you, Dr. Jordan. You have to mute yourself. We just want to hear you speak Hebrew. You claim that you speak it, and if you called out, here's the thing: you would gain so much credibility. This whole room would go, "Wow, Mojo got punked. This guy really does speak Hebrew." We would all look like real big idiots if you just said a few things in Hebrew.
There is no point.
So you don't speak Hebrew, clearly.
Oh, I didn't. So
Good Gesundheit.
I don't speak any type of Hebrew. I'm actually just a pretty dumb American. However, I think that we're going to continue to see a lot more people speak up, like Rayaba, against the Zionist movement if things continue the way that they are with the elitism that he's talking about. How Americans are basically silenced, punished for speaking out against or wanting to hold Israel accountable for the things that they're doing. And the Zionism that I'm referring to isn't what, Mojo Jojo, what he was referring to, right? Like self-determination, yeah, I support that for anybody. But for any group of people, what I don't support is, like an ethno-state. I don't support particular people using crazy injustices to accomplish those things, right? Displacement, disenfranchisement, what's going on in Israel right now. You have Israel surrounding a 20... Sure.
20% of citizens of the state of Israel are Arab. 20% of the country. They are full citizens with full voting rights. They serve in the government. They're ambassadors to other countries. They sit on the Supreme Court. They have full citizenship. That's Israeli citizens. 20% are Arab. So when you're talking about it, you have to be very clear, because within the country of Israel is a democracy with full citizenship rights of all nationalities. Now, if you're talking about your feelings towards a country that's an ethnic state or a country that is controlled by a religion, I would tell you to look at the 57 Muslim countries in the world, or the Anglican Church country that's up in the top part of Europe. I mean, I'm not sure what your beef is. If it's a religion controlling the country, there's 57 Muslim countries. However, within Israel, or within the nation of Israel, there are 20% of the citizens who are Arabs. They fight in the army. They're lawyers, they're doctors, they're on the courts. I mean, I'm not sure what you're stating, but it's not within the state of Israel.
Yeah, so basically you're saying they're Zionists.
Excuse me?
You think for the point from the beginning. The guy, that's why he read the definition of Zionism. And the point of the whole conversation from the beginning was, you don't need to be a Jew to support Zionism, to be a Zionist.
That's
correct. So thank you for reading us the stats on that.
There are 10 million evangelical Christians in the United States that are Zionists. 10 million.
That's a fact.
Evangelical Christians. They're amazing Zionists. They're stronger than a lot of the Jews in the U.S.
Now, I want to say this. Has anybody seen the videos of Netanyahu being interrogated by the International Criminal Court? You can look it up.
I think what people were saying, right? Masada, can we go to that conversation just afterwards? I think Ben was actually hit on something in terms of ethno-states. I want to maybe just have a look at why. Yeah, I'm curious, Ben, if you want to respond to Abby, and maybe keep in mind that if people are against ethno-states, then they must also be against Armenia, Japan, Bhutan, Iceland. They'd be against a Kurdish state. They'd be against Catalonia, Basque. And also, as Abby was mentioning, that the vast percentage of Muslim countries, which there are 57 or thereabouts, are effectively ethno-states. Anyway, if you want to talk to that, Ben, then please.
And England, which is an Anglican church, controls.
Well, 98% of Japan is also Japanese.
Yeah.
But that was historical process naturally, not by force.
The real question is, should we have more?
Hang on, wait. I thought I was speaking to Beema because she made a comment before I would be able to get some of that. Beema, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think when I was referring to the Zionism, right, because we were talking about that term, and I said, I think a lot of people would define it as, self-determination. So I think that's fair. But I think there's a lot of other people, I would say many others, maybe it's, I don't know, I wouldn't be able to tell you the percentage. I think other people take it as a threat because of what we're seeing Israel do to the Palestinian people, and specifically in Gaza and the West Bank, right? So I don't think, you have
What's
right
the
now
West Bank?
the West Bank, the other area of within the
Judea
region.
and Samaria?
Judea and Samaria. The West Bank, I'm not sure what you mean. Like, why are you challenging me? You know what I'm talking about when I say the West Bank. Everybody knows that there's a West Bank that's not Gaza, that's in Israel. They refer to it. Everybody refers to it. So why are you trying to? What are you trying to?
Be factually correct. That's
Correct. C. Area C. Area C, where most of the taking over and the pushing out of the homes and the destruction of homes, the massive rebuilding without the right. They don't have a right. Israel doesn't have a right to do what they're doing in Area C, and they're doing it anyway. That's one. So Area C is what I was referring to. And then also what's going on with Gaza right now, where you have an entire population that is completely enclosed. These people have no opportunity to be self-sustaining in any way, where every type of electricity, water, aid, everything right now is completely controlled by Israel. What exactly is Israel's intention? What do they expect to happen right now?
I'm going to ask a question. Bima, do you think it'd be fair to say that there has never been an opportunity for self-governance in Gaza?
An opportunity? Sure, of course there's an opportunity.
And who would be responsible for making the most of those opportunities?
Well, I think that's what the biggest argument is here, to go back to Rayaba's point, is that the United States has been so closely intertwined. Our governing system, we've supported Israel and this, for what Israel is to do, not the Palestinians, but what Israel is to do since the very beginning. So going back to hold on, so let me finish. So he had mentioned the Balfour Declaration. We have AIPAC, which is just a constant congressional influence. If you look at any type of anything that has to do with Israel in the past even year, you're going to see an overwhelming majority of Republicans and Democrats voting in favor. I'm talking just small percentages of nays. Like, you're talking like maybe seven Republicans and maybe 22 Democrats, right? That will be, and hundreds of Republicans and Democrats in favor of. So
we're actually going off topic.
No. I just don't think that you like where I'm going. So hold on. Can I finish? Would you allow me to finish? My point is that the Zionism that we're referring to and the elitism is that the United States, all these other countries, okay, fine, whatever. We're talking specifically about Israel's actions and how how we are by default forced to support Israel. Billions in aid every single year. The United States is passing us. Hold on, and I'll just give me 20 more seconds, and then I'll end.
No, 20 seconds. No, because you're actually dishing out this. I understand.
Okay, well then allow me to finish. Bro, you keep interrupting me, and I have ADHD, so every time you interrupt me, I lose my track of thought.
Now I'm going to interrupt. Here's the thing. This is what moderators do, is when somebody's carrying on and making thousands of points, in order to have a conversation, what you should do is make 1 point, maybe 2 points, then allow for somebody to respond to you. And I think that would be a much better way to hold a conversation. Nobody gets any value from somebody just going from topic to topic to topic to topic to topic. And then when you do bring something up that needs to be called out, which Roe was going to clearly do, he was going to interject and just ask you a simple question, which you wouldn't have known the answer to, and he would have proved his point. And so I know exactly where he was going. But how about this? Go ahead finish one or two more points, then Roe's going to go ahead and ask you a few questions, and the whole room is going to understand that you don't even know the topic that you're talking.
Okay, I appreciate it. Thank you. So all I'm saying is, I was talking about the elitism, and I want to say that I think that is 100% what most Americans have issue with right now, because of the connection that Americans have by default to supporting Israel when we don't want to. We have to get, right now, what we're seeing, billions in aid that we have to give to Israel every year. The United States is passing laws to punish Americans who are boycotting Israel. We have blocks on international efforts if we want to hold Israel accountable. And that's, I mean, if you see what just happened in Florida, right? People losing contracts because they refuse to sign contracts to say that they're not going to boycott Israel.
Was this your idea of 1 or 2 points?
No, this was just I'm trying to connect the elitism and Zionism together. I'm trying to say that when I'm talking about Zionism, I'm talking about what Israel is doing to Palestinians that Americans do not support, and the tie of our force to continue to support it through legislation, and then also our own punishment as Americans when we choose to boycott Israel.
See, I'm going to point something out here, okay? Beamer, why I was trying to stop you like 5, 10, 15 minutes ago, whatever it was, because whether you realise it or not, I've got a great deal of respect for you. I really enjoy listening to you a lot of the time, but you actually took the conversation in a direction, although I understand the direction you went in, but it was actually curtailing the initial question that I had asked, and that was, has there been opportunity, and if there has been, whose responsibility has it been to be able to make most of those opportunities within Gaza? You've just galloped, and I understand the reason why you want to be able to connect, Zionism and elitism, which is just, I mean, this conversation and what you're doing is actually falling into a paradigm which everybody else wants to be able to enforce upon Jews and Israelis and Zionists. Okay, it's really you've got to no. You can actually just hold off for a second. Okay, just let me finish what I need to be able to say. Where I was, and believe me, there is actually really good reason. This is a separate conversation completely about why there is a connection and a backing of America and Israel. I'm happy to have that conversation. It's a very separate one. But for Americans, I could probably point out at least half a dozen incredibly good reasons why Israel has been backing, why America has been backing Israel and vice versa. Okay, but that's not the conversation we're having. My point to you is this, Beamer. And you said yes at the very start, because you're right. It was the responsibility of the leadership of the Palestinian people, right, to make sure they took advantage of all the opportunities that have been given to them, to make sure that they had these facilities, which includes the water and the sewage and the electricity and the gas and so forth. And that has been stuffed up by their leadership. It's not Israel's fault. This is where blame has been, has been guided, okay? And people like yourself have been misguided, right, in that direction. The Palestinian people, and believe me, you've probably heard me say this before, I want peace. I want these people to be able to have a state of their own, separate to Israel. They can govern themselves, they can have opportunities, they can prosper, and they can realise themselves to have a great life for themselves, and also intertwine, right? So the two people can actually work together, like Israel is doing with many other countries in the region. Israel wants peace. But you need to be able to be honest with this and realise that the Palestinian people, right, have received more fucking international aid than any other fucking people on Earth in history. Now, what has happened to it? Why has it been mismanaged? Why is it that these billions upon billions of dollars have not reached them in a way that allows and enables a young population to be able to see opportunities, to be able to look forward to a prosperous life, a fulfilling life? People choose choose to be able to blame other people for that. Okay? Billionaires that have been created, right, lie at the top of Hamas, as an example, where their total net, the leaders of Hamas, and you can really, please do this research for yourself, the leaders of Hamas have amassed a personal net worth of over $11 billion. Can you tell me, hand on heart, that anybody, like that Israel is responsible for the complete and utter mismanagement of these funds that have been sent? And by the way, money's been sent by America, by Australia, by Canada, by New Zealand, by the UK, by every fucking country, and so many different organisations from different countries around the world. Okay, to help the benefit, right, Palestinians. The blame has to go on two different spaces. Okay, one, okay, is the leadership of the Gaza people. Okay, tell me if I'm wrong. Okay, two is that the world should have stood up and done some things about this going back many, many, many years ago, including the United Nations, that have been blind to the reports that have been made, the numerous reports that have been made. Why? Because it's convenient, unfortunately, to be able to have a scapegoat, which unfortunately.
Well, I think that's what the entire argument, that's the argument that I'm making. I don't think that if you go back and forth if you were to steelman any type of Palestine.
Where you were going was, it is like America is supporting, okay, this problem, okay, and that America shouldn't have Israel's back. That's where your argument was going, and that Israel and America are responsible, okay, for the shit show which is Gaza. That's where you're going, whether you realise it or not.
Well, I think that, and that might be true. That is probably where I'm going. I don't believe that Americans should be punished for wanting to have a say in the Palestinian-Israeli issue, especially after, like, we're constituents. The bills have to be paid through the constituents. So for half the union to have a bunch of laws that don't allow Americans to speak out against what Israel is doing to us, I think that's a problem. That's just an American problem, but that goes back to the elitism, and then that ties into what I would consider what people have issue with Zionism, because the Zionism isn't necessarily this this neutral or even a positive self-determination. What we see, people. So the Oslo Accords, because we talked about. Listen,
you're grabbing the definition that you feel is a populist definition, and thereby trying to be able to, thereby falling into a paradigm which is false.
Well, I'm not. It's not. But when you say populist issue, you might be right. You might be right about that, and because you're correct. It's what people, but that's how humans, they communicate, and once they understand and see and conceptualize things that with patterns and objectivity, they're able to draw conclusions. And if
Wait, I'm going to pause you there. Pause for a second, okay? So we can all agree that Black Americans, right, were subjugated and forced to be slaves for 400 years. Now, if there was a narrative, okay, that was coming from 70 or 80% of the world's population, which is to say that, you know what, there was no slavery, would that make it so?
I'm sorry, I stopped listening once you. I apologize. I got distracted. If you could just focus on just what we're talking about. I don't want to deflect. And can we please, if you don't mind, just stick with the conversation. The analogies, I get lost.
The parallel that I was creating, okay, was that if you choose to be able to follow the narrative of the masses, it doesn't necessarily make it true. That's what I was pointing out to you. No, okay, just because
right.
There might
you're absolutely right, but what it comes down to is then where the punishment. Right. we agree. We agree then. Right, but we agree. But let me ask you, do you think that it's right that almost 40 states have anti-BDS, that the House, however many years ago, passed resolutions saying that the people in the United States can't boycott what Israel is doing? Do you agree?
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. Yep.
You agree that they shouldn't have First Amendment rights to boycott Israel. That's
this is not about boycotting Israel.
That's exactly what it's about. That is what Rayaba. That's what my connection was. The elitism that he was talking about, and Zionism. It's all connected. If you don't see it.
No, I see where you're coming from. The conflation is that BDS is something that is against Israel.
Well, of course, and they have every right to be. They have every right to be, unless you want to be a tyrant and take people's First Amendment rights away and say that they can't boycott Israel. I mean, that's ridiculous. Who's paying for this, right? You want to be a tyrant over the American people? That's crazy. Let people be people. Let the market decide freely. Punishments are insane for speaking your mind. I think that's insane. Anybody that supports that is a tyrant. That's crazy.
So the same sort of you'd be perfectly okay if swastikas were on literally every corner of the American streets. Would you be okay with that?
As long as those people weren't there wasn't any type of force that their taxes had to support things that they don't agree with, because that's what this all comes back to. The American people should have the right to have a free say, regardless. It doesn't matter what it is. I don't care what it is. That's why we have the First Amendment, right?
Freedom of expression, right?
Bro, can I boycott Coca-Cola?
Yeah, but he's missing the financial push. This element of financial
boycott common sense
as an element.
Why not Israel?
Over $3 billion given to them. I mean, and no, I mean
$3 billion is couch compared to what the U.S. government spends every year.
People have received more support around the world than any nation or any group of people. No, bro. Israel's way surpassed that. The state of Israel way surpassed that. So I don't know what type of agenda you're pushing here. And besides,
hang on for a second. I'll tell you the agenda that we're talking here, okay? And that's about truth and justice. That's the agenda. Well, okay, you're conflating the support that an arrangement that America and Israel has together with being international aid. Okay, whether you realize it or not, what transacts between Israel and America is not the form of international aid, like entirely. Do you realize that?
Hold on, I'm gonna jump in here because there's a lot of back and forth and a lot of weird shit. I'm a Zionist, and I'm also against all foreign aid. I love Israel to death, but I also think that Israel is a rich country. I don't think we need to give them money. And that's coming from a Zionist, an American Zionist. I don't believe we should give money to any nation. I don't think we should. But I definitely think we should cooperate with our allies, which Israel is. They're a good ally, and they do a lot for us. You guys probably don't understand cybersecurity. If you did, you would understand the importance of the relationship between the United States and Israel in that regard. But I want to talk about this BDS thing because it was brought up almost as if people like heard a word but didn't really know what the fuck it is. So for those that have never heard of BDS, it's boycott, divestment, and sanctions, right? This is something that started about 20 years ago, and it's by some pretty nefarious groups. But I would argue, and this is where I would disagree with Roe, I am a big believer in free speech. I'm a big believer even in the display of swastikas. I think that's okay. because I would, and matter of fact, the Supreme Court would agree with me as well. It's my opinion that it's better to let people identify this way, so then you can know where they stand and you can take your defensive actions. The idea that the U.S. with these, because there has been some state laws that have gone in place as a response to these dangerous BDS movement, but be very clear that there's never been a First Amendment violation. There's nothing that stops people from their free speech. Right? There's nothing that stops them. You can go ahead and you can protest all you want. You can boycott all you want. The only thing that they've done with these laws, just to be clear, hasn't violated a single free speech law. It simply just says that they're banned from government contracts, which the government can set whatever stipulations they want in terms of banning people from government contracts. Nobody's entitled. There's no Constitution amendment that says that anybody's entitled to a government contract. And if anybody thinks that they are, please let me know. It also requires certificates that contractors are not participating in a boycott of Israel as a condition of doing business with the state. And in some cases, some of the states restrict state pension funds from investing in companies that boycott Israel. And now again, none of this says that you can't do it. What it is it's just like you have the right to boycott. Nobody's stopping you from boycotting. They're just simply saying that there's also going to be measures taken as a response to your boycott. This is what free speech is. In fact, these laws are just ensuring that free speech goes all the way around. If you want to boycott them, that's fine, but don't feel that you're entitled to government programs, because now what you think is that you're entitled to taxpayer dollars, which you're not. So, anyways, if anybody wants to argue the legality of that, I'd love to argue that, because I would bet that there's not a single person, the exception of Abby, that understands what these laws are. And so I would welcome anyone that wants to say that this is a violation of the First Amendment. Please come up on the stage and we're going to have a legal conversation. And I'm going to guess nobody's going to take me up on this.
I'm going to just we're going to dot some I's and cross some T's here, just to be able to clarify, in terms of the BDS movement itself. It was set up as a non-violent campaign advocating for Palestinian rights. That's the way it was. There have been numerous governments, not just America, organisations and also analysts that argue that BDS is actually the organisation. BDS is by nature anti-Semitic, and it has deeply anti-Semitic. And some of the arguments that you can bring into this is as follows: targeting the only Jewish state. Whilst I don't believe that Israel is, or the Israeli government, beyond any type of criticism, just as I feel that any other government, should be criticised, for some of its actions, without question. But this organisation purely targets one particular state, which is the only Jewish state in the whole world, where there are significant human rights violations that are happening in far bigger proportions when it comes to, for example, China, or Iran, or Russia, or Syria. Part of the BDS movement is about denying Jewish self-determination as well, which is also a big part of what their program is. It's academic boycotts against about Jews. It's ridiculous. Hostility towards Jewish students and institutions. The historic anti-Semitic tropes that came up through the BDS movement itself need to be understood as it is a movement that was looked at and said, okay, we need to be able to do something about it. I've got no issue with Israel being criticised, but when you start having double standards, you demonize Israel, and when you delegitimize the right for Israel to be able to exist, that's when it becomes a problem. Anyway, back to you, Moj.
Oh yeah, I just wanted to open up the floor to anybody that wanted to challenge this idea that their First Amendment rights are being taken away from them. I don't know if B Master or our resident Hebrew speaker Rayaba wants to speak on this fact. Are you guys under the impression that the First Amendment grants you the right to government contracts? Is that what you guys are fucking claiming?
No, basically what I'm saying is I think it's discrimination, right? If a person is going to have whatever type of political views of something that's going on in the world, but as a citizen, as a taxpayer, as a person who is a part of the system, we are the people, right? Supposedly, to discriminate according to a belief that they have on something that is very controversial, it's their taxpayer, give them back their taxpayer money then. If you're going to discriminate according to what type of views they're going to hold outside of what they're actually doing, they're contracted for a job. They're going to do the job. They're not going to show up to the job with anti-Israel T-shirts, whatever. You know what I'm saying? They're going to just do the job. But to discriminate, that makes no sense. What if you want to use, Roe wanted to use the slavery. Let's say that's what it was about. Let's say we look back on this, hindsight in 20 years after the world has finally come to the agreement that what Israel is doing to Gaza is genocide, right? And now it's being taught as genocide. Oh, by the way, people who were contracted, if you were against the genocide 20 years ago, you lost your that's pretty intense.
The government does that kind of shit all the time.
Right, but it doesn't make it right, and the whataboutism doesn't make it right either.
Congress places restrictions on monies used all the time, and it is right. It's the appropriations process.
Right. So then give them back there. So then, Marshall, I understand what you're saying, but what I'm saying is, it doesn't make it right.
So then,
if you're a citizen and you're a taxpayer,
does that mean you want to withdraw your claim that the First Amendment rights are being violated? Do you want to walk that back?
What do you mean by that? I'm not following you.
Well, you said that BDS groups were having their First Amendment rights being violated, and I'm simply asking if you want to walk that back.
Yeah, as far as there's some limitations.
Well, I was asking her a question. She can speak for herself.
I'm not sure. What do you mean by walk back? I support it.
Considering the government, the First Amendment does not specify that the government must issue contracts to anybody, and so. You made the claim that this was a First Amendment violation. That was the case you were making to Roe, and I'm explaining to you that nobody is entitled to a government contract. And my question is, do you want to argue that fact, or do you want to walk it back?
I mean,
so you have protection through the freedom of expression. You have government protection through the freedom of expression. You can't be punished by expressing yourself. And so because he has a government job and the government fires him, now there's stipulations on that, meaning if you're giving a protest and you're trying to incite a riot or you slander somebody, then that's the exception. But
you're not listening to a word I'm saying. She made the claim. I'm focusing very narrowly on the claim that she made when she was talking to Roe, because people just make these claims. She was saying that a First Amendment violation is happening, and I'm simply asking, where in the First Amendment does it say that you're guaranteed the right to a contract with the federal government?
That's the freedom of expression, bro. It protects you from that.
Wait.
You're talking about, bro.
Please explain it to me. Like, treat me like I'm 5. You can talk down to me because it'll probably be better for me. I just pretend that I am the fucking biggest retard in the fucking room, and I want you to walk it through slowly of how it's a First Amendment violation. Go ahead.
saying the freedom of expression, okay? The freedom of speech protects individuals from government punishment. And they're a government worker. Grand opening, grand closing.
Government workers mean you work in an employment area. And
Don't
point
you?
you
Hold on, Marshall. This is so funny. Like the sloppy argumentation that you guys make. First of all, I don't believe that the gentleman that just spoke has ever read the fucking Constitution. I don't think he knows what the First Amendment is. I don't think he knows what the anti-BDS legislation is, what it actually accomplishes, because it doesn't address the First Amendment at all. The First Amendment's not even an issue here. But if you want to make that the argument, I'm simply asking you, please show me, give me a case that would prove your point. Tie it back to the Constitution without just saying sloppy words. I mean, like, we've been dealing with this all night. We got the Hebrew Israelite that doesn't speak Hebrew and is not an Israeli. And now we got people that want to say that there's a First Amendment. Now we want to hear from people that say there's a First Amendment right that don't understand what the First Amendment.
Roger.
There's a freedom of expression. Protect individuals from government punishment.
not while they're on the job. If you work for the federal government, the federal government gets to tell you what to do. It's not viewpoint discrimination.
But Marshall, do you think that is so? Hold on. I would just honestly, do you understand where? I just want to know if you understand where I'm coming from. So you're saying that I agree. You don't have a right to a government contract. Fine, no problem. But you're saying that if you're contracted, that the government then can tell you basically you have to give up your constitutional rights. You don't have the right. If you contract with us with this, you get this contract. You no longer have your constitutional right to free speech and political expression.
Yeah,
Isn't that like?
That's totally different from what.
Well, no, hold on. Nobody's telling you you can't do it. You can do it. This is the thing. You can do it. What they're saying is that the government in these states that are passing these laws, they're saying that construction and infrastructure projects are not going to go to firms and individuals that belong to these firms that that are practicing this. Now, here's the thing. You could say that, hey, you're imposing this negative consequence on me, but they're not restricting your free speech at all. You can make the choice to do what you want to do. There is no First Amendment violation there at all. I wish Bryn was here. Like, somebody ping Bryn. Let's get somebody in here that because I can feel the energy of people going, how does Mojo know what the fuck he's talking about? Well, this is goddamn common sense. But I will say that nobody here has given me a case that validates their claim that this constitutes a First Amendment violation. And in fact, the lawyers for these BDS groups are not even making that claim. It's ignorant people on the fucking interwebs that are making those claims.
Okay, so you're saying that if you're a government employee and you protest against the state of Israel in any fashion, you're going to get punished. All right, okay.
If you do it during the workday.
Exactly. You're going to have to sign this loyalty oath and not give, take fucking, that's exactly a fucking loyalty oath. Otherwise, you're gonna, that's the condition.
But hold on. So what you're fighting for is that you don't think that the other end of a contract, this is interesting for you to make this argument, B-Master, somebody that doesn't believe government should exist at all. We're talking about contracts. You're saying that the other entities should be forced into a contract with you. Why can't they set the terms of whether they want to enter a contract or not enter a contract with you based on characteristics that they deem undesirable?
Because
you either believe that contracts should be upheld by law or you don't. I will say you're not going to do very well in an anarchist society if you don't believe in conscience.
That's the paradigm. That's the contradiction, though, Mojo. Is it's not a private business doing private business. In that case, sure, absolutely. You're talking about a group of people who are paying into, are a part of, and are part of the government. We are the people. And you're saying that we're going to tax you. We're going to do whatever the hell we want. You're going to be subject to our laws and our rules and our force. But you know what? We're going to make you sign a loyalty oath. We're going to make you, we're going to restrict your free speech. You're free to speak, but you're going to lose the benefit.
Hold on. No, but again, this is where you get out over your skis and you just make these emotional arguments. Nobody's saying anything about loyalty oaths. What they're simply saying is that the government has the right to decide who they're going to enter contracts with and what the characteristics of entities that they want to do contracting with. And what you're arguing is that they shouldn't have that they should be forced to enter into. So if a state government had a bridge building project, there could be a dozen factors that would nullify, and instruct that, hey, that's not the contractor that we want to do business with, and the state has the right to set these predetermined values, right? And what you're suggesting is that you think that freedom of speech means that you can compel the other side of the contract and force them into a contract with you. I think, honestly, you might want to go back and read every bit of philosophy that you've professed to believe in about contracts and upholding contracts, because what you're saying is that you want to unilaterally enforce a contract with the government. I think that's crazy coming from an anarchist.
You're still missing my point of the contradiction. The point is that the people are supposed to be protected. Their amendment, their constitutional, they're supposed to protect them, and that's what. So, being able to have free speech, that's their First Amendment rights. You're saying that you can contract, right? You're going to have to surrender your constitutional right to free speech.
I said
no,
the
that's
exact.
Literally what that. That's literally
this
what
is the
that
point
law
that
is.
you're missing. This is the point you're missing. That's exactly the opposite of what I'm saying. And what this does is simply asserts that the state can make decisions on who they award contracts to. And what your position is that by them choosing to not award contracts to people that meet some characteristic that they find undesirable, that is somehow protected in the First Amendment. Please find me that. Please find me in the First Amendment where it says that you should be granted a contract, or that somehow that the government can't decide who they're giving their contracts to, based on these criteria. They have every legal right to do this. Every legal right, which is why 35 different states have these laws on the books, and nobody's fucking successfully challenging them, especially on First Amendment fucking grounds. And I think that every time you mention the First Amendment, the more it becomes clear to me that you don't know what the First Amendment is.
Well, you're going to have to prove to me that
I don't have to prove shit to you.
Well, I'm saying it in jest in the conversation. Forget it. I still don't see how you're not understanding that if you have to surrender a constitutional right in order to contract with the government of which you are supposed to be of and a part of, to which you are subject to and support. Hold on. Right. But it's a condition, because you're saying. Right.
There's all kinds of conditions.
But they're saying that you have to surrender a constitutional right.
You don't have to
saying that the price that if you decide to speak freely on this, that you're going to lose your job, and that's coercive and unconscious.
No, listen, I can't debate with people that don't understand fucking the Constitution. you're trying to extend the First Amendment right to force contracts on the state and federal government. This is not anything to do with the First Amendment. If you want to say that you don't like it, that's fine. But the government didn't pass a law that said you can't boycott. They didn't do that at all. They're not saying that at all. In fact, you do have the right to boycott. What you don't have the right to do is boycott and then demand a contract. If the government says, yeah, we're not giving you the contract, there's not a single part of the Constitution that says that you are entitled to a contract. Not a single part of the Constitution. There's nothing in the Constitution that even alludes that you have the right to a government contract.
It also helps to know that the First Amendment being didn't work, I think the way you think it works, is to stop the government from compelling speech in political movements. It's not the federal government getting in the way of employing the law. If you work for the federal government, they can tell you what to do. They can tell you to take a COVID shot unless you don't want to keep your job. Nobody is required to get federal contracts, which is why it doesn't fall under a First Amendment thing. People have the right to contract freely unless they discriminate against the already listed classes in jurisprudence. But they're not asking for a surrender of the First Amendment. They're simply saying, in order to do business with the federal government, which
Marshall,
you don't have. Go ahead, Roger.
I was just gonna say, they're not making a legal argument. They're making a demand of the government that they don't have a right to. They're moving beyond rights, and this is what's funny. The people that are self-identified as anarchists, what they really want is to enforce their will onto the government, which is hilarious. It's fucking hilarious. It's not that they don't want. It's not that they're resisting government imposing their will on them. They're quite literally making a demand that the government must do what they want it to do. It's the most authoritarian thing I've heard in a long fucking time, and I'm just fucking amazed that the argument was made by an anarchist.
I appreciate all this, the poisoning of the well, Mojo Jojo. It's very, very well done. You do that well. But you're still missing my point. My point is that I actually agree with you, but I don't understand how you would think that it's more tyrannical than less tyrannical if they're forced. It's a public benefits as government contracts, right? Because the people that you're contracting with are the ones that are paying for this to happen. The government can't condition access to public benefits like contracts on giving up a constitutional right. You can't. That's what I'm saying. That if the government, no problem. If it was a private company, that we're not talking about that. We're talking about the actual people that are paying for them. I don't know if you don't understand it. To say that it's, I think what I think is actually happening is that the tyranny is, the bootlicking is running strong in this.
No, hold on.
When it's in someone's favor, of course.
Marshall. I think she's right. I think the bootlicking is running strong. The interesting part is it's the anarchist that's licking the boot.
Listen, again, you poison the well, but you're not, and deflection, distraction, I appreciate all the, I appreciate all. I have fans. I appreciate my fans as well. I love you. Thank you. Tune in. But I'm not saying that anyone has the right to a government contract. I agree with you. What I'm saying is that if it is a government contract, the government can't deny people a contract because they have a particular political belief on something that has nothing to do with the contract.
Yes, they can. No, but they can. They can. And by the way...
Okay. So you don't think that... So just hold that for a second. So do you think that that's tyrannical or freedom? You think that's more tyranny or more freedom?
Hold on. not only can they do that, but the bigger point here is that it has nothing to do with the First Amendment. That was my entire point. When you were arguing with Roe, you said it was a First Amendment issue. I just simply illustrated how it's not. And then you're saying the government doesn't have the right to do it. And I'm saying, well, clearly they do have the right to do it. It's a law that's on the books in 35 states.
Yeah, and so was slavery.
Yeah, let's be clear about this real fast. Like, the protest didn't just spring up randomly in states. Like, it started over there first. It started, them over protesting back in 2020, all the way to 2021, and again in 2023 about Netanyahu and the leadership and what they're doing. So it's not exclusive to America, you understand? So, and they were protesting why? And it was some of the longest protests against Netanyahu in the state of Israel.
Masada, let me ask you this. Are you in support of freeing the people from Gaza from Hamas?
Alright, so I'm gonna get to that. So, what are they protesting over there? They're protesting over there because they had believed that Netanyahu was supporting Hamas and other organizations financially. It was funneling. So now, when the International Criminal Court interrogated him on this, he admitted to it. He said that he gave money to Qatar, that Qatar gave it to Hamas. It's live video of this. We can see this. Do you understand? So this is why right now he's in the hot seat with the International Criminal Court. They're trying to put him up on charges. You understand? So you guys are supporting something that you guys have no clue what you're supporting.
So let me ask you this, Masada. You think that you've done all the research and the people that are on this stage have done none of the research? Like you're the guy that knows all of the facts. This is your position.
That's not my position. My position is that if the guy Netanyahu said that his own mouth, I financially gave Hamas $1 billion, and he said the reason why in the interrogation is on video.
Yeah,
That's the reason. So, what are we really supporting here?
Israel may have done the initial thing. I think there's an argument to be made that they co-opted themselves with Hamas to get the PLO out. But the majority, like the lion's share of funding for both Hezbollah and Hamas come from the state of Iran. So.
Yeah, that's correct. He said that in the interrogation. He said the reason why I'm giving money to Hamas is because you must keep your friends close but your enemies closer, and he didn't want unification of the PLO in the West Bank, PLO with Hamas. So he tried to keep them separated.
My point was, while there may have been some initial funding, the vast majority of the funding over time has come from the state of Iran. Funding from the other side takes up an infinitesimally small amount.
$1 billion ain't what we. This is what the word, the title of this is: controlled opposition. He tried to control. So how were you funding them the whole entire time?
If they're not funding them the whole entire time, that's the
You're gonna demonize them. You
No,
understand? So
they literally have to set themselves the whole time.
And that's why you can't just believe in anything you see. There's more layers to this. So that's why you gotta be aware of the protests and stuff going on in those news.
I'm
And
very
some
well
protests over
aware.
here, but it started over there first.
I'm very well aware, like intimately well aware of that. We just don't see eye to eye.
Well, hold on. Lasana, can you walk me through, what was the date of this International Criminal Court interrogation of Netanyahu?
When did it start?
I can't even tell you when it started.
When was the interrogation? You're claiming that there was an interrogation by the International Criminal Court of Netanyahu?
Yeah, it was interrogated.
When did this occur?
I don't know exactly when it started. You can
So you don't have a date. Do you have a link to this happening?
Yeah, let me get it. I'll give it to you.
Yeah, please.
And it was Israeli coast.
Well, this bears
That wasn't his claim. He said the International Criminal Court.
and the SEC, which doesn't have any teeth and will only ever have teeth if the United States wants it to. It's sort of like the UN. So I got something for you. Hamas for me. An offshoot of the Palestinian Muslim Brotherhood was created in 1987 as a response to the Intifada uprising, the Palestinian uprising against Israeli occupation and rule in Gaza and the West Bank. Its organizers included religious leaders and prominent professionals. Sheikh Ahmad Yassin, the charismatic paraplegic leader of the Muslim Brotherhood, was the driving force behind its creation. He was joined by Abdul al-Aziz al-Shab al-Rantisi, a physician, Ibrahim al-Yazuri, a pharmacist, Isa al-Nashar, an engineer, and Abdul al-Fattah, the schoolmaster. Islamic activism had existed in Palestine for decades. Its most prominent expressions was Muslim Brotherhood and Islamic Jihad. The Muslim Brotherhood came to Palestine in 1935 when Abdul al-Rahman al-Banna, the brother of Hassan al-Banna, who created the Muslim Brotherhood. Let's go a little farther down. This comes from, just so you know, Masada, this comes from a book called Islam and Politics, the Fourth Edition by John Esposito, who is noted to be a scholar on the matter where to go. For Hamas, Palestine is a permanent Muslim territory, a land which has been and will continue to be in Muslim hands until the end of time. As its charter of August 1988 declared, the Islamic resistance movement believes the land of Palestine had been in Islamic Waqf, or endowment, throughout the generations until the day of resurrection. No one can renounce it or part of it, or abandon it, or part of it. And this Waqf will endure as long as heaven and earth pass. The ideology of Hamas combines Palestinian nationalism, viewing the defense of Palestine as a jihad incumbent upon all Muslims. Quote, the Hamas regards nationalism as part and parcel of the faith. Nothing is loftier or deeper in nationalism than waging jihad against the enemy and confronting him when he sets foot on the land of the Muslims. When our enemies usurp some lands, jihad becomes a duty of all Muslims. None of what I have just read indicates that Bin Laden funded these people. It does mention on the next page the Qassim brigades were funded by the Iranians. Point being, the Iranians had given Hamas the lion's share of their funding, right? Like 99% of their funding.
How can we blame them if Bibi did the same? Not the same amount, but he did the same.
What do you mean did the same?
He took money from Qatar and gave it to Hamas. Simple.
Yeah, my point was that was such an infinitesimally small amount.
My point is they did it.
All good is in the Matrix.
Yeah, Matrix, sorry.
So is Netanyahu formally wanted by the ICC? Is there like a warrant out for his arrest?
Yeah, but there's also one for George W. Bush and one for, I think, Barack Obama. Well, not Obama, but definitely W. The ICC's rulings and gesticulations don't affect a damn thing. Like, the ICC has absolutely no teeth to do anything. Member states have to agree to submit the people who want to be punished to the ICC. It really could be viewed as a piece of American imperial statecraft.
question about First Amendment. Does it protect the citizen only or anybody within the border?
Anyone within the border has the right to freedom of speech.
So if come after me and revoke my visa, that's against First Amendment.
No, visas can be rescinded for all sorts of reasons. They're very conditional. For example, advocating for a terrorist group or holding a Hamas flag. That's enough to get your visa yanked.
So I did find one case. I'm still getting the details, but a federal judge in Texas ruled the anti-BDS contract law unconstitutional. And it looks like another in Kansas did the same. They both won. And possibly in Arizona. Legal, Perry versus Sinderman, 1972. The government may not deny a benefit to a person on a basis that infringes their constitutionally protected freedom of speech, even if they have no right to that benefit. So if a government distributes or is offering contracts, it can't penalize you for engaging in protected free speech. It'll catch up. Hopefully. So yes, you don't have a right to a government contract, but also the government doesn't have the right to say, to use contracts to punish people for their political beliefs either.
So if government comes after you, you're international student, and cancels your visa, that's against the First Amendment?
Hey, a combat. Yeah, I made a mistake. It was it's red because they were the one that destroyed the interrogation. And that's the one that's video good. Right? That's the one that's video good. I made a mistake. It was the international criminal court that actually conducted the video investigation, recording investigation. It was the Israeli criminal court, and he admitted that in the video during the interrogation. But I just sent the link of it though. So he was interrogated in the video in the interrogation. You can see him being interrogated, his wife being interrogated, being the former Minister of Finance being interrogated, and other people that he was very close with ministry being interrogated. And and then first of all, it started off with bribery. They tried to stick to the bribery when they're asking a bunch of questions, but then toward the end, that's when they asked him about the war and finances being given to Hamas, and then he admitted to it. But that's about the last 20 minutes of the video.
It's interesting. You can always follow the money with these, I mean, like with any bill, but that's with anything, right? But I always find that the donors and the political influence, you can always like connect them to something. This BDS stuff, these unconstitutional attacks on free speech. It looks like this guy named Ham Saban and Sheldon Adelson. That's right. Millions and millions and millions to APAC, Super PAC, all to support Israel on like there's they're Zionists. I mean, self-admitted, this isn't me saying this. $140 million to birthright Israel to fund youth trips, foster. That's crazy. And apparently they paid off, obviously with very lovely large donations, the Congress, the members of Congress who sponsored the bills. I mean, it's bullshit. Always, as usual, per usual. That's the elitism that we were referring to, and the connection with Zionism.
I'm going to know what the outcome's going to be like in New York. The mayoral election.
So if anyone, there was like some misinformation that was circulating about a professor who had released a study about aid distribution, the aid distribution compounds that are in Gaza. And he released it on the Harvard Dataverse, which is like an open source, like anybody could go on there, anybody could upload anything, is basically my point. And some media stations took it, and I don't know really how they made some sort of deduction that, according to this report by Professor Yakov Garb, that the death toll is much higher than the 61,000. They said it was something, like crazy, like really around like 377,000, something like that. So I was obviously very interested in where that came from, and I had to follow it back, and then I went and I actually had to go to Harvard Dataverse and upload the report that was being referenced. It's crazy how social media really takes things, and it doesn't do Gaza any justice anyway, or the people that are then going to look like idiots making these and quoting these statistics that were just basically, I don't even know how they were honestly concluded. But what it does say, because the report does give information, and basically what the report was about was these compounds that are set up in Gaza to aid, like to give humanitarian aid. The idea was like the assessment, like I think it was the data set and initial analysis of location, context, and internal structure of the compounds using like spatial calculations and such. But anyway, the idea was that these supposed humanitarian constructions, these compounds, are completely out of any type of reasonable reach for Gazans. They explain. If anyone's interested, you could just look up Yakov Garb, Yaakov Garb, Garb, and just go to the Harvard Dataverse. It's just dataverse.harvard.edu, and you should have access. You just put it in the little search, and you just download it. And you could look at it. But I think that even though it's not saying what a lot of the social media networks were saying, it's still pretty grim what it did conclude. And the professor was, I believe, Israeli himself. He's a geospatial, I don't know what you would call it. Geospatial professional? But the conclusion is, overall, these aid compounds seem to reflect a logic of control, not assistance, and it would be a misnomer to call them humanitarian aid distribution hubs. They don't adhere to the humanitarian principles, and much of their design and operation is guided by their objectives, which undermine the declared purpose. They have them structured to what the military would refer to as fatal funnels. So if anyone were to try to reach them, they'd have to go through this very vulnerable path, and almost like a completely unreasonable geographic, I don't know how to say it. but it shows like a map, which is interesting. And you could just like see, like, what the hell are they thinking? Because it's like away from all civilization. It's crazy. I don't know. The black lines indicate some of the newer military roads and pacifications, the Netzarim and the Morag corridors. One can see clearly that the Gaza City population cannot access any of the 8 compounds without a long walk across a barren rubble field, crossing the hazardous Netzarim road corridor, entering the red-colored buffer zone, which they're prohibited. That's crazy. So they have to cross an area where they're not allowed to go. That doesn't make any sense.
Everybody, hey, yo, Watch, how you doing, brother? Everybody crashing out, yeah?
Hey man,
What's up? What's happening?
nothing, just the usual bullshit. What's with you?
Same old, same old. Same old, same old.
Yeah.
How's the weather there, hot?
Yeah, very. How's the weather where you're at?